For coming. I would call the meeting of the Department of Transportation Modernization Ad Hoc Committee to order. And thank you. I believe Mr. Robbins is touring the parking lot and will be joining us momentarily. No, I only say that because we did too. There's a lot of parking lots out there. Really beautiful campus. We're very happy to be at Greenville Tech today and so thankful to see so many folks who've joined us in the audience. And I think other than the members that you have here that we'll introduce in a minute, somewhere is our chairman of Ways and Means, Mr. Bannister. Thank you, Representative Bannister, for joining us this morning. Appreciate you making the long trek from your district. Very much appreciate it. Yeah, you get the farthest drive award for today. And we're happy to have a lot of folks signed up to speak as well. But our first piece of business is, ladies and gentlemen, this is a hearing. This isn't where we will be commenting or asking a ton of questions. This is for us to learn and listen. So our committee is going to work really hard to do that. I think Representative Crawford shared last meeting that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So we're going to do our best to remember that that's our job. And so if we're not interacting with public comment, we're trying to listen and hear everyone who is here. And that's very important. We also have a time crunch today, and we're sorry about that, but most of the committee has another meeting, so we're having to stay on schedule. With that, let's see, I guess the introduction of our members around the table, and why don't we start over there with Mr. Teeple?
There we go. Hi, everybody. My name is James Teeple. I represent District 116. That's down in the Low Country with Charleston and Carlton counties.
Hey guys, I'm David Martin, representing District 26, the east side of Fort Mill.
Hey, good morning, David Vaughn, District 27, Simpsonville and Malden, just down the road.
Mr. Guppy, you might want to hit the button. We can turn them off and on, I believe.
It is on. It's on.
Yeah, it's on. He just wasn't close enough to it. Representative Brandon Guppy, District 48, Rock Hill and Lake Wiley.
Hey, Gary Brewer, House District 114 down in Charleston and Dorchester counties.
Good morning, everyone. Mark Smith from House District 99, Berkeley County.
Hey, Stephen Long, District 37, Spartanburg County.
Bill Hickson, House District 83, Aiken and Edgefield County.
Lonnie Hosey, Barnwell, Hallandale, Orangeburg, District 91.
Shannon Erickson, House District 124, Beaufort.
Heather Crawford, House District 68, Horry County, South Myrtle Beach, Burgess, Greater Socastee area.
Good morning. My name is Mark Willis. I represent District 16. That is part of Simpsonville, Fountain, and Great Court.
Good morning, everyone. Roger Kirby, House District 101. I live in Lake City, represent Florence, Williamsburg, and Berkeley County. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Cam Brell Garvin, District 77, located in Richland County. Great to be here.
Good morning, Don Chapman, District 8, Anderson County.
Good morning, Brian Lawson, District 30, Cherokee and Spartanburg counties.
Good morning, Philip Bowers, District 3 over in Pickens County. I represent Clemson, Central, and 6 Mile area. Thanks for coming.
Turn it on. Hi, good morning. I'm Scott Montgomery, District 32, Spartanburg County, but I represent all of South Carolina.
With us today, staffing our committee, are Emma Hall, the research for education and public works, the public works side of things, and Mills Carlton, who's our Ways and Means analyst for the Transportation and Regulations Budget Subcommittee. And we have the best. And we should also thank Lauren Shehorn, who's in our office in Columbia, who helped us get all these things ready. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a travel voucher that I need for you to sign and make sure you get back so Lauren can complete her work for you on that. And with that little housekeeping, I'm going to turn it over to Representative Crawford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to all the members for being here today. Let me say thank you to Greenville Tech for having us here. We appreciate you providing us this facility and this opportunity on our very important listening tour, our road show going around the state. First, this morning on our agenda, we have a presentation by the South Carolina Highway Patrol, Major Sean Stankus. I will ask you to step up to the podium and prepare. I think you also have Miss Emily Thomas with you. So we'll let you guys get started. Members, you have a packet in front of you. For members of the public and in the audience, we have screens here where you should be able to see the presentation as well. And for members, you have a packet. So thank you, Major, for being here. Appreciate all that you do. And with that, we'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chairs, members of the committee. My name is Sean Stankus. I'm a field operations major with the South Carolina Highway Patrol, along with Miss Emily Thomas, Captain Stephen Holmes with STP. Miss Emily Thomas is with the Office of Highway Safety, and Mr. Michael Thompson. We were asked to provide a brief review of the Department of Public Safety. So we appreciate the opportunity to speak before you this morning. I will be brief before I turn it over to Ms. Thomas. I was asked if I would to provide an overview of the agency. So I would start, each of you have a packet. We had a slideshow, but each of you have a packet. The organizational chart for South Carolina Department of Public Safety consists of 13 different units or divisions is what we call. 7 of those divisions reporting directly to the DPS director, Director Rob Woods, the 4th. And then we have a chief of staff, which is retired Colonel Mike Oliver, who is the deputy director, and 6 of those divisions report to him, with him reporting to the DPS director. One of those units, obviously, and is one of the largest units, is the South Carolina Highway Patrol, which I'll get into a little more detail. The South Carolina Highway Patrol is commanded by Colonel Chris Williamson. The third slide that you have is the South Carolina Highway Patrol Headquarters Command Staff, which I'm a part of that. That is Colonel Chris Williamson, we have 2 lieutenant colonels, one being a lieutenant colonel over administration, and one being a lieutenant colonel over field operations, and then 4 majors, 2 field majors and 2 administrative majors. I fill the role of the field operations major and cover troops 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the mate team, which covers the entire state. So basically the upstate and then the reconstruction team that travels across the state. As of September the 2nd of 2025, there were 757 uniformed law enforcement officers that fall under that command. The next slide is basically a more in-depth breakout of that chain of command, showing where the 2 field majors report to the field operations lieutenant colonel, and then the administrative section of headquarters reports to the administrative lieutenant colonel. The mission of the Highway Patrol is to provide equitable services and protection, and to uphold the laws of the Constitution of the United States and the state of South Carolina, in order to promote a safe and secure environment for the public. Serve the public in a dedicated, honest, reasonable, and professional manner. Assist, direct, educate, and counsel the public in matters consistent with our mission. Reduce the number and severity of traffic collisions through the diligent enforcement of all traffic laws and promotion of traffic safety. Cooperate and communicate with other law enforcement agencies in our common objectives. Respond to emergencies and disasters with all available resources. Be accountable and manage all allocated resources effectively and efficiently. The core values of the patrol: selfless service, integrity, and responsibility. Selfless service being that place the needs of others and your subordinates ahead of your own. Integrity being honest, forthright, and truthful. In any and all situations, do the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do. Responsibility is being accountable for your duties. You're expected to complete all duties and assignments to the highest standard. The mission, vision, and values: the South Carolina Department of Public Safety will serve and protect the public in South Carolina through training, education, prevention, and enforcement. The vision of the South Carolina Department of Public Safety is to be the model state agency by making the best use of resources. Our values: the South Carolina Department of Public Safety values excellence in service to customers, relationships among employees, continuous improvements of its operations, communications inside and outside the organization, teamwork among its subordinate units and employees. The South Carolina Department of Public Safety values the provisions of justice for its customers and its stakeholders, values the trust of the public, values a well-trained professional workforce, and values its reputation for integrity. We provided a map for each of you, not to insult anyone's intelligence, but it's a breakdown of the 7 field troops and what counties are assigned to that troop. And at this time, I would defer my time to Miss Emily Thomas, who will provide you with some more detailed stats with regard to the department. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Emily Thomas, and I work for the Office of Highway Safety and Justice Program, which is a division of the Department of Public Safety. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you today. I'd like to first present an overview of the Office of Highway Safety and Justice Programs, and then I'm going to dive into some of the data surrounding traffic collisions in the state. So the data will come a little bit later, so give you a minute to prepare yourselves. Our office administers approximately $10 million annual in highway safety funds. Our funding entity is NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, a mode under the United States Department of Transportation. The Highway Safety Program in South Carolina follows the principles of the 4 E's of highway safety: enforcement, education, engineering, and emergency services. SCDPS is primarily oriented towards the first 2 on that list, enforcement and education. However, SCDPS and SCDOT have long been partners in our common mission to reduce injuries on our state's roadways, and we often work together to address the 4 E's. We work to address enforcement through our Office of Justice Programs indirectly. We fund traffic engineering or traffic enforcement grants in high priority areas of the state. We award traffic enforcement training grants as well, and we support our local law enforcement networks. So we have 16 law enforcement networks that correspond with the 16 judicial circuits in the state. And those are our local law enforcement agencies. So we've got Major Stankus, who spoke about the role of Highway Patrol, but we also work with all of our local police departments and sheriff's office to conduct traffic enforcement as well. And then we conduct an annual law enforcement challenge. In terms of education, we have campaigns where we produce paid media, so TV, billboards. Hopefully some of y'all have seen some of our media placements. Some of the billboards maybe even coming in today. Some of our earned media, such as press events, and then also public outreach events. So we often have a booth at some of the major events around the state, including the Country Music Fest, the Carolina Cup, the Darlington Race this past two weekends ago. In Darlington, that race was sponsored by SCDPS, the Craftsman's race was. The Office of Highway Safety works with state and local agencies to develop and implement highway safety programs. In addition, the Office of Highway Safety spearheads many enforcement and educational campaigns. And lastly, we are the owner of the state's traffic record system, and we serve as the statewide repository for all collision data in the state. If you flip to your next slide, I'm going to describe how our agency uses traffic collision data collected from every law enforcement agency in the state to lead us to make better decisions and ensure our programs are working as intended. First up is problem identification. No area in the state is immune from traffic collisions, and our problems are many and spread wide across the state. However, the characteristics of traffic collisions often repeat themselves, and through the problem identification process, our office is able to determine where crashes are happening, who they are happening to, and the factors that may have led up to the crash itself. A thorough understanding of the problem leads to selecting the most appropriate countermeasure or treatment to address the issue. For example, our problem identification results may indicate an increase in the number of crashes during the summer months, and we'll work together with our communications team to develop messaging that will be shared across our social media platforms, encouraging drivers to drive responsibly. Or our analysis of crash data may indicate a disproportionate number of speeding-related crashes on a specific corridor in the upstate, and a specialized enforcement team can be deployed to conduct targeted enforcement efforts to address these types of violations and to deter driver misconduct through a strong law enforcement presence in that area. Rounding out our traffic collision data progression is the evaluation of our programmatic efforts and reporting of statistical data. How can we know if our programs are working if we don't look at the data and see how effective they are? Did we make the traffic safety issue we were targeting lessen? Were the outcomes as expected? Did we make a difference? Annually, OHSJP, my office, publishes traffic collision fact books. The first edition was published in 1939. And as far as I know, only one copy remains, and it will remain a state secret as to where that is. And to my knowledge, like I said, however, for those of us that like to look at the data and really get in the weeds, you can go to our website, and we have published every edition from 2013 through 2023, which means 2024 is on its way. And you'll see a cover of that plan there on that slide. So if you'll switch to the next page. Here I've provided a snapshot of what we see in South Carolina in a year. So we have over 143,000 traffic collisions in our state every year. In the past year, in 2024, we had over 1,000 traffic deaths. And we get a report every morning from our fatality analysis reporting service analyst, our FARS analyst. And I have the fatality count as of midnight yesterday, this year. 609 people have died on our roadways so far this year. That's compared to 571 last year. So while we see a slight decrease in the number of fatalities we've had compared to last year, that number is still far too high, as one is too many. And then the other column there, over $6 billion in economic loss for South Carolina each year. So economic losses include medical costs, lost productivity, legal and court costs, emergency services, insurance administration costs, congestion costs, property damage, and workplace losses. Alongside these figures are the outputs associated with some of our enforcement efforts. Over 16,000 DUI citations were issued last year, 63,000 seatbelt citations, and 245,000 speeding citations. And because I knew we would all want to know, we looked at the data, and we have issued just over 1,000 warnings under the new hands-free legislation since it was enacted on September 1st. And just a reminder, we have a 180-day warning period, and then we'll start issuing tickets for that as well. And if you flip to the next slide, in order to address the committee's interest in traffic safety issues we're seeing in South Carolina, I'm displaying the average yearly occurrence of the top crash factors for fatal and serious injury crashes. So fatal and serious injury crashes are the top injury severities. If you're looking at the injury severity scale from no injury all the way up to fatality, serious injury is just one step below fatality. And often the characteristics of that crash are very similar to a fatal crash. However, you may have an occupant that was belted or driving at a lower speed, and therefore a fatality didn't result, but a serious injury did. So oftentimes we look at those top two tiers of injury severity. I want to point out that fatal crashes can involve, and serious injury crashes can involve more than one of these factors. For example, you can have an unbelted young driver who was speeding and ran off the road. And so you'll see some overlap in these factors. This graph does not separate SCDOT or SCDPS focus areas. Rather, lane departure, for example, must be addressed by all the 4 E's of highway safety I mentioned earlier. Lane departure occurs anytime a vehicle departs the roadway or crosses the center line. We dive into the data to figure out why the driver departed their lane. Was it because they were speeding and lost control of the vehicle? What safety message can we use to educate drivers about the dangers of speeding and operating a motor vehicle? Is there an opportunity for enforcement? And then Secretary Powell has spoken before about SCDOT safety programs that address lane departure. What we're trying to do is build a system of redundancies. So if one system fails, there are 5, 6, 7 or more to back it up. A quick note about South Carolina's Strategic Highway Safety Plan, the cover of which you see presented on your slide. This plan is developed jointly by SCDOT and SCDPS and delves into all the highway safety issues I've mentioned and the strategies that will be used by our safety partners to address these issues. The version you see on the screen here is 2020 through 2024, which means we're very close to wrapping up the next publication. I encourage you to take a look at this plan. And on your next slide here, you'll see the factors the rates come in. So I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. We have a highway safety issue in our state. Nationally, South Carolina ranks first in the fatality rate, which is the number of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. This is a calculation that's used to compare states that might have vast differences in population. We are first in the nation in that category. We are third in the number of deaths that involve an alcohol impaired driver. We are third in the number of pedestrians who die per 100,000 population. We are fifth in the number of deaths with a speeding driver and ninth in the nation for the percentage of traffic deaths where the deceased was unbelted at the time of the crash. Over 50% of our traffic fatalities where an occupant had access to a seatbelt were unbelted. If you flip to your next slide, I'm going to wrap up today with a few examples of SCDPS's enforcement and educational efforts. In the upper left, you'll see Highway Patrol alongside aircraft from the Department of Natural Resources. This was a joint initiative to address speeding from both the ground and the air over the July 4th holiday. In the center, you see Operation Southern Slowdown. This is an annual multi-state enforcement education campaign that brings together law enforcement from Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee, some of whom you see in the photo at the bottom of this slide. During this week-long operation, law enforcement increases patrols on high crash corridors to encourage drivers to slow down, obey the speed limits, and drive safely. We just wrapped up our campaign to address impaired driving, sober or slammer. This campaign is conducted over the Labor Day holiday period, a time where we typically see increases in these types of crashes. If you'll flip to the next slide, here are some pictures from our educational events. In the upper left is South Carolina Highway Patrol Colonel Williamson and the program he started that brings law enforcement into the community to meet our youth and explain road safety, including pedestrian safety. Efforts like Colonel Williamson and all our community relations officers encourage positive relationships between law enforcement and the community. Briefly, the bottom left is a program called Think Fast. This picture was taken during a Think Fast event at a high school in Florence County. This program turned the school's auditorium into a game show, and the host combined positive safety messaging in a competitive spirit as an educational opportunity. And just a few more on the next slide, some more of our educational efforts. And then I'll wrap up. The very last slide are all of our social media accounts that are updated daily. So if you're interested in following us, please do for more information about what we're doing, our education and enforcement campaigns, and where you might see us out in the community. And I just want to say thank you again for your time today, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I have a couple of questions, and I'm just curious, and this may be some information perhaps we could get for the committee. Not necessarily right now, but I'm curious. Well, obviously one death is too many. But I'm curious how we stack up against other states with fatalities, collisions, some of the stats you provided. Perhaps y'all have some of that information that you could provide.
Yes, ma'am.
For staff so that we could give that to our committee members. And I'm wondering too, as we have been tasked with this modernizing DOT, making our roads better, safer. We hear about the unsafe rural roads and different things like that, which DOT has done a fabulous job. We're adding rumble strip signage, different things like that to help address some of those measures. But I guess I'm curious as to some of the factors that play into some of these collisions. Is it distracted driving? The General Assembly has, of course, you mentioned the hands-free law that we have recently worked on. Is it like, are there some DUI laws? Perhaps surrounding states have stricter DUI laws. Maybe is it better signage, rumble strips, better striping on some of our roads, especially some of our rural roads? I don't know if you can speak to that, or if you would, or if there's some information that you could provide us from other states so we can kind of see how we stack up. Again, any fatality is not good. And so we want to work on, maybe there are some other states we need to look at. Maybe there are some folks that instead of reinventing the wheel, perhaps they do some things a little better. And there are some folks we should look at.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your question. And I will say, our agencies work very closely together, and SCDOT has done a phenomenal job through the Rural Road Safety Program. If a driver were to depart the roadway, they're making the roadside and the clear zone as safe as possible for that driver. So we look at why the driver left the roadway in the first place. So approximately 30% of our fatalities involve speeding, 30% involve impairment. Distraction is in there as well. And it also could be, somebody else is crossing over into your lane and the driver's trying to take adverse reaction. So there are a number of factors and they often overlap. So you have young drivers too who may be inexperienced. So again, we're partnering together to look at those locations where we're seeing these types of crashes, and then we can target our enforcement in those areas for those driver behaviors. So we're looking at it from that enforcement side. And then again, if they do depart the roadway, the roadside and clear zone are as safe as possible so that they don't sustain as major of an injury as they could. And then also targeting folks from the educational perspective, informing people that just a 5% increase in your travel speed can increase your chances of being seriously injured in a crash significantly. People think that, it's just 5 over, it's just 10 over. If I just stay, 9 over, I'll be fine. But the body is only designed to withhold certain forces, and it becomes a matter of kinetic energy when you're involved in a crash, right? So you've got to look at those factors as well. So I certainly appreciate your question, and we absolutely love to look at other states' programs. We often talk to our partner agencies in our NHTSA region, and we look at the programs that they're doing, and what can we beg, borrow, and steal, right? So thank you for that.
Great. Thank you so much. At this time, I will open up to any members that have questions. Any members that have questions? Representative Guffey.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Number one, how long have y'all collected the stats on this?
Well, like I said, I was able to unearth the 1939 version of our FAT book. So, and the statistics were a little different back then. We don't have quite as many horse and buggy crashes as we once did.
Yeah. Well, I know we had the comparison with other states. I'm sorry. Yeah. But I'm curious if the 2003 to 2005 cuts to the Highway Patrol have resulted in increased fatalities, increased accidents, period. Have y'all looked at those stats at all to see? I know it just used to seem like whenever I was coming up, there was a lot more troopers on the road.
Right. I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me at this time, but we'll certainly get back to you with that.
Okay.
I apologize.
And the other stat that I would like to see, especially since we've increased a lot with the port, how many of these fatalities involve the commercial vehicles or the transportation companies?
If you don't mind, we have actually Captain Holmes from the State Transport Police with us. And if he wants to stand up and say a few words about some trucks, we brought him here because we thought we might get some truck questions.
All right,
So
thank you.
we'll make his time worthwhile here.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be brief. To answer your question, roughly on average, about 100 every year, 100 fatalities, that is. So if we average 1,000 fatalities generally a year, around about 100 involve a CMV. That's not saying the CMV driver. And actually, let me clarify, it's a large truck or bus. So it's not necessarily a commercial motor vehicle. It could be a large truck or bus involved, so around 100 on ballpark average.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Representative Garvin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for your presentation today. How many deputies or officers are currently on the roadway?
Highway Patrol,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to defer to Major Stankus on that, if you don't mind.
Sorry, as of September the 2nd, there were 757 uniformed officers. I can give you a breakdown of each troop and provide that to you, which will give you an exact number.
Sure.
But that's
That'd be great. And typically, I don't have to have the exact number, but are they kind of evenly spread throughout the state, or are you all looking at just target areas?
yes, sir. Well, I pulled the numbers for Greenville for Troop 3 this morning just to see. There's 106 troopers assigned to Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson, Pickens. Most of those assignments are based off of need. So you're looking at your two largest troops, really three, or Troop 3, which is the Greenville area, Troop 1, which is the Columbia, the Midlands, and then Troop 5, which is the PD. That's where your largest contingency of troopers are located.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. And one final question, as it relates to retention, are you all keeping your officers or deputies, and are there a lot of vacancies at this time?
I have those numbers. If you give me a minute to go through them, I'd be glad to get them to you.
That's perfect. I know that those were kind of in the weeds, but that's perfect. You can get them to staff at any time, okay?
Yes, sir. I've got them with me. I'll have them before you.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for being here today. And also let me do say, I know that we recently lost a trooper and one last month. So please, our thoughts and prayers with them and every day for what they do for our citizens and our community. And we certainly appreciate you guys. Can't thank you enough putting your life on the line every day. And again, let me just say our thoughts and prayers with those families of those lost officers.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Madam Chair.
Co-Chair Crawford, we actually have one trooper who's in surgery this morning who was involved in a work-related incident. So if we could all stop for a minute and say a little prayer for him, that would probably be a nice thing to offer. Thank you very much. On to the next, are there any
Sorry,
further
we have
questions? I
Couple
apologize.
more,
I
couple
cut
more
you off.
questions. Representative Kirby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just regarding the issues that we've had with highway patrolmen and or workers recently getting hit and or losing their lives. If your agency has any additional policy recommendations for this committee and for the legislature, we would greatly appreciate y'all communicating that loudly and clearly. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. for that.
Thank you for that, Representative Kirby. Great point. And please, yes, provide collaborate with us, anything that you guys have suggestions on, please. Representative Willis.
I just have a little shout out here. Major Stankus lives in my neighborhood, and he is on duty 24/7. He runs by my house every day, and we're currently not at our home having some renovations. And Major Stankus will text me and say there's an unusual car in your driveway. So these folks are on the duty 24 hours a day.
On? I think so. Okay. Thank you. In case you don't know, I think Representative Willis knows somebody everywhere. I don't know how he does it, but he will find someone to introduce. And we're glad it was you today, Major. The second piece we've got today is an update from Department of Transportation Secretary Justin Powell, who is going to update us from what we heard last time in our first meeting in Columbia. And Justin, I don't know if it's part of what you're going to update us on or not, but there've been a couple of news articles. I'm glad that we're getting press talking about the fact that we're having these meetings and we're working on solutions. But I think you've been quoted a few times in the article, and I know that sometimes the press can get it all straight. Some of it can be discombobulated. And if you can tell us about those articles and exactly your interactions and anything that you want us to know in that regard. We do thank the press for covering the issues, but let's make sure that we hear from your side of what was in those, as well as whatever you need to update us on. Good to have you here. Thank you. And the whole DOT plan, by the way, is here today. Thank you.
No, thank you, Madam Chair, and always difficult to follow. Emily Thomas used to be one of on our side, so always thorough, and so certainly miss her at the department, but no, she's doing great work at DPS. To answer that question, I think there was some quote in the recently about industry capacity, and it was taken out of a little bit of context from what I was saying. It was really very close to what Representative Lawson asked me at the last meeting about how if money were no object, what would be the capacity of the industry to ramp up? And I think what I was trying to convey in a much larger context, but obviously the sometimes the one bullet gets taken out of the context, was really to say that we have a good industry participation right now. We have good response, particularly on bridges, particularly on interstates, for responding to what we put out. But if there were to be a substantial growth in our program, it would require a dialogue and a ramp up period with our industry. But based on the experience we had in 2017 following the 2017 roads bill, where we had a ramp up built in for the industry there, we would expect that the industry would respond on any change in that point forward. So I think just to put it in context is that the contractor supply for the program we have right now is strong, and that we would be willing, and I think they would be willing and able to ramp up from there as well. Wanted to do really more than anything for the benefit of the public and the committee, a real abbreviated version, not the 2 hours and 29-minute version that we had last month in Columbia. But just a couple key points before we get into hearing the public testimony today. First of all, I think kind of is just a reiteration. We look back at the 2017 roads bill, which was really a fix it first bill. It was really focused on dealing with 30 years of deferred maintenance that we had on our system. Up to that point, we were really focused on managing the decline of the DOT system. So this is on slide 2 for y'all that was put on your table. But I think we all know, and I think we've all been seeing it, and Greenville is certainly no exception to it, that the growth that we've seen since 2017, that exponential growth that's come to South Carolina, has certainly required us to change how we think about doing business. And certainly, I think the charge for this committee, that 2017 roads bill, and we've talked about it before, has really focused on 4 key areas. The first one being rural road safety for us. So as Ms. Thomas said, we have one of the nation's worst fatality rates, particularly on our rural roads. We've already done nearly 1,200 miles, working on a goal of 1,300 miles, and we've seen a 20% reduction in those crashes using that data that Ms. Thomas referred to there. In terms of paving, we've gotten 9,600 miles of paving across on all 46 counties. In Greenville and Spartanburg counties in particular, since 2017, that has meant 600 miles of paving projects in those 2 counties since the 2017 roads bill. Bridges obviously have a lot of attention here in the upstate, where we have, I would say this is the center of our bridge challenge in South Carolina, where we built in the 1950s and 60s a series of timber pile bridges with concrete slabs that are now hitting their useful life age, and we've seen some challenges, particularly Representative Bowers' district, recently due to some oversized vehicles passing over bridges in violation of the posting. But we have a target of 530 bridges. We'll be upping that at our next commission meeting, but we have gotten that already 416 bridges underway. But just to put it in context, we have 2,400 bridges in South Carolina that are 60 years or older. Right now, many of them in the upstate, 80 bridges closed, a lot of those related to Hurricane Helene damage, and those are getting reopened right now, with another 700 bridges with load postings. And our interstate program, probably our biggest project that we got underway here, obviously the 85 corridor in Spartanburg and Cherokee counties, but also the 85 through 85 Gateway interchange, which was one of the first of our 3 major system-to-system interchanges. Just a quick update on our budget. As we talked about before, we're 60% state funded, 40% federally funded. Those federal funds come with strings attached. Our budget is half into maintenance and preservation, bridge work, paving, and our maintenance forces up here in District 3. A third of it goes into capacity and operation improvements. Those are predominantly interstates, safety projects like you heard earlier from the DPS side, as well as our regional mobility program. So up here is GPATs and SPATs and ACATs are the metropolitan planning organizations for this region. The Appalachian Council of Governments also fills in there. And then our budget, remaining budget is just 13% of remaining operations. We go predominantly, all of our dollars go back onto the road. Share a couple updates on major projects happening in the Greenville-Spartanburg area. Probably the biggest one most recently completed as part of the nearly $7 billion in road work we have across South Carolina. We recently completed the diverging diamond interchange at SC 290, not far from all the manufacturing BMW plant, as well as all the suppliers over there, working very well in terms of improving congestion on a very, very heavily traveled area. When you guys are down, for those that are continuing your visit in Greenville, we have a major rehabilitation going on the Church Street Bridge through downtown Greenville right now. And we have major and safety operational improvements happening on US 25, a rural road safety project right there at the border with North Carolina. Some major projects in the pipeline right now. We have SC 183 from basically western Greenville County into Pickens. That is a jointly done project with us and the Infrastructure Bank, as well as with a Woodruff Road parallel project, which Woodruff Road, for those not from here, is a highly congested corridor in just outside between Malden and the city of Greenville, building a parallel route to deal with those congestion issues. And then our planning office right now, been on the books for a long time, has been a study of I-85. We are updating that right now to make sure we've identified the right improvements for that corridor. Once we build it, we've got to maintain it. Our personnel, about 2,700 employees across the state. This area is managed by our District 3 personnel. Brandon Wilson is our district engineering administrator for this area. For those in this district know Brandon well. We have 2,700 personnel to manage 41,000 miles road and 8,400 bridges. And you can see some of the stats in terms of what that individually, what that means for us to maintain. We talked about our challenges, and I'll hit on about 3 areas that continue to be a challenge for us at the department. Hopefully that can be a dialogue with the committee as we move forward. Obviously, I think the first thing here is that there are many hands in getting a road project done. At the top, we talk about the U.S. Department of Transportation. I talked a lot at the last meeting about our relationship with the Federal Highway Administration, which provides about 40% of our funding. Another major partner for us is the Federal Transit Administration, which provides us funding to provide funding for rural transit, as well as and then direct funding to our urban transit providers. So up here, that'd be GreenLink, run by the Greenville Transit Authority. One of the challenges we've been working through internally, and I think many committee members are aware of this, but we had some real compliance issues with the prior administration, our transit function. We are undergoing a pretty robust federal review right now, fully working through that whole process right now. But I think what's going to be the outcome of that review, once it's finalized, is that there's going to be a lot of change in how we deliver rural transit in South Carolina in terms of the requirements we put on the providers, as well as that. But we're looking forward towards doing a full transit plan statewide, really to make sure where we take our finite resources, where does it get us the biggest bang for the buck. But we'll be working through that. We talked a lot about county transportation committees. Greenville County has a very active one here, as well as Metropolitan Planning Organizations, Council of Governments as well. But certainly, I think as this committee is very focused with us in terms of trying to streamline things. Last week, I met with Deputy Secretary Stephen Bradbury, USDOT, really to talk about their opportunities they have going on in terms of environmental permitting, streamlining, bringing private investment into projects. So right in front and center with the feds on that as well. All right, there we go. Slide 8. I think we talked about this before. Certainly no different for folks here going and shopping at the Publix or doing their grocery shopping here. We've seen a diminution of our buying power, and this is a nationwide issue. This isn't a South Carolina issue. But our dollar simply doesn't go as far as it used to. We can see 114 miles of 2-lane paving when the gas tax started. It's down to 87 miles now. And what that means when we live within our budget, that means we are pushing out fewer projects across the board. But I think overall, our biggest challenge that we're seeing, and I think it is particularly true here in Greenville and Spartanburg, is that we are growing incredibly rapidly across the state. I think people have all discovered what we all know. South Carolina is a great place to live, work, retire, open a business. But because of those local land use decisions coming in from the growth that is coming to South Carolina, what we ultimately are dealing with at the state level is the consequence of those decisions of traffic showing up on the state highway system. With us owning over half of the roads in South Carolina, certainly we're the ones that are getting the bear. So I think that's going to be an area of where we need to talk. We have added 360,000 people in just 4 years statewide. many of them moving into Greenville and Spartanburg County. Spartanburg County is one of our fastest growing counties across the board in South Carolina. So I think folks are feeling that strain of growth. So I look forward to answering any questions and addressing any, continue to work with the committee as we move forward and to hear that public testimony. So with that, Madam Chair, so I will return the floor to you.
Thank you, Justin. We appreciate you being here and providing the update and the local information for here. Well, I've got a second before we ask if there are any questions. I should have mentioned this before, and I will do now because we all know those, I forgot the number. Heather, what was the number of potholes? 756,000 potholes? Was that what I read? But you can report your own pothole. And I want you to do that. You can have the 511 SCDOT app on your phone and you can report it. We want our folks to do that because that's helpful for you. And we actually know it gets done when they report it. You can also actually call a toll-free number, 855-GO-SCDOT, to report things that are wrong on our roads. So they are, I can say from personal experience and the folks that I live around, that when you report it, it gets attention. And it helps us because your eyes, citizens' eyes on the roads are letting us know are the best things we've got. Just the communication from your office has been really helpful through the next last few weeks, and as we move into the next planning for the rest of the meetings that we will have. Members, are there any questions for Justin on our update for today? No. Well done. All right. So remember, you can go to 855-GO-SCDOT. Hope that the public will reach out and help Team SCDOT fix any of those problems that you have out there, or use the SCDOT 511 app on your phone. And just as another reminder, if you would like to send in commentary, we're going to start our public commentary soon, but if you would like to send us comments, we would love to hear from you. Our email address is scHouseEPW@schouse.gov. So South Carolina House, Education and Public Works, initials for all of that, at schouse.gov. Please send us your comments, and with that, I believe I'm going to pass it over to Representative Crawford.
Thank you. So we are going to begin the public input section of our meeting. Just as a reminder, this is a time for our members to listen to the public and to hear from our neighbors. These folks signed up in advance, and then there was also a sign-up sheet this morning when you arrived. We will be giving each speaker 5 minutes. Mills will be keeping that. Unfortunately, we are a little time restricted today, so we're going to stick to that 5 minutes. Please be respectful of that. We will give a little leeway for you to finish up the paragraph, but please don't go to another page. Please help us keep that 5 minutes. We want to thank the members of the public for being here today. Without you and your participation, this would not be possible. Again, we are doing this all over the state. We want to hear from our constituents, our neighbors, and if you have anybody has any other, if you don't get a chance to speak today, you want to submit your written testimony. Chairwoman Erickson did mention that, but let me say that again, scHouseEPW@schouse.gov. Please submit your comments there if you have any written testimony. If you're unable to continue today to say, if you've got more things to say, please get that to us. Staff will provide that to every member of this committee. That is very important. So again, this is not a time for debate. This is not a time for questions. This is a time for us to listen. So with that, we are going to get started. Emma has the list. Mills has the time clock here, 5 minutes to each member of the public that signed up, and we'll get started.
All right, so first up is Casey with King Asphalt.
Good day. Thank you for having me. My name is Casey Schwager, and I'm the president of King Asphalt. I'd like to touch on 3 points today from a contractor's perspective. That's inflation, congestion, and industry capacity. Our organization employs just shy of 800 men and women and has 10 manufacturing facilities across South Carolina. In Oconee, Pickens, Anderson, Greenville, Spartanburg, Chester, York, Marion, and Horry counties. Also attending with me today are some team members of King Asphalt who happen to be some of our second and third generation road and highway builders. Ladies and gentlemen, the highways and bridges that our fathers and grandfathers built cannot stand for 60 to 100 years without being rebuilt and replaced. Design life, weight of vehicles, and volume of vehicles has all changed. Currently, is my opinion, there's nothing wrong with the South Carolina Department of Transportation. They have been historically and critically underfunded. Current funding levels, as explained by Secretary Powell, will repair and replace around 700 centerline miles per year. Our current system is 41,000 centerline miles. Representative Kirby, I believe you commented at the Columbia AdHoc meeting that it seems like there's no catching up. The math points to your statement as being correct based on current funding. At this rate, it will take us 59 years to cycle through all of our roads. I can tell you the primary routes I repaired in my 20s already need resurfacing due to high traffic volume and wear. A 60-year cycle just will not work. Our industry thanks you for the 2017 roads bill that was meant to address 30 years of delayed maintenance. Before this bill, South Carolina was the 4th largest highway system in the nation, yet 48th in the gas tax. We are now 30th. I would like to address what happened with our industry during and post-COVID. Suddenly, costs of everything began to rise. The South Carolina Asphalt Pavement Association performed a confidential blind survey of members to try to understand the impact inflation was having on the industry, as SCDOT was noting rapid increases in costs. The survey looked at cost increases of a few inputs from 21 to 24. The results confirmed what we already knew, but were nonetheless staggering. Aggregates and sand, 41% increase. Trucking and hauling, 24% increase. Labor, 22% increase. Heavy equipment and machinery, 29% increase. Wearable steel items and pickup trucks, 34% increase. With the data I've listed, one might expect a 31% increase in costs. Secretary Powell recently highlighted to you that the buying power with 1 cent of gas dropped from 114 to 87 centerline miles from 2017 to 24, a decrease of 24%. Representative Robbins in Columbia, you mentioned that the SCDOT asked for significantly more than what was received in 2017, and inflation has eaten that. I want to thank you for that acknowledgement. The gas tax increase from the 2017 roads bill, 12 cents phased in over 6 years, was a total increase of 75%. The percentages that I've listed are evidence that 33% to 40% of that increase have been eaten away by inflation. Now that inflation is normalized, we can expect about 3% moving forward. That number will be nearing 40 to 50% by the end of 2027. So when speaking to maintaining the existing system, you can see that industry's concern moving forward is not only that there is an inability of the funding to keep up with the current maintenance needs based on the size of the system. The tax passed in 2017 is nearing only 60% of the buying power it originally enjoyed. Reducing the existing system by passing roads to counties and away from SCDOT responsibility only passes the problem to counties that in most cases don't have the capacity to handle. Congestion. When I first started working in the South Carolina construction industry, I had the fortunate opportunity to be working in the middle of what South Carolina called the 27 and 7 program. While over 20 years ago, I was surprised that I hadn't heard it mentioned recently. That goal, if I remember it correctly, was to achieve 27 years of congestion projects in 7 years. This covered roads like Highway 20 in the upstate, Highway 295, Highway 296, 585, 385, and Highway 105 in Cherokee County. It was a great time with many challenging projects. I believe it was funded through bonds. While I'm not advocating for that, there are tools in your toolbox that have had success in addressing congestion in the past. Since the end of the 27 and 7 program, there have been very few large congestion projects that were non-interstate or not funded by local county sales taxes. Lastly, I would like to address industry capacity. Representative Lawson in Columbia, you asked if we gave additional money today, do we even have the workers to perform the work? Our organization has grown significantly over the last several years. Our industry has also grown significantly in response and partnership with both the legislature and the South Carolina Department of Transportation. The phasing in of the 2-cent gas tax per year was smart and gave us the opportunity to plan and invest in our organizations. We've risen to the call. As you can imagine, making a multi-million-dollar investment in an asphalt plant or machinery fleet cannot happen without the understanding of a dedicated funding stream that exemplifies the opportunity for growth, not contraction. Our organizations have expanded in response to the increased work that is being provided in the state. We have proven that we can and will grow to address the needs of our communities. However, as the buying power of the gas tax is being reduced, the available work for the contracting community is also being reduced. Currently, the commercial side of our industry has been strong, and we have filled those gaps with private work. However, we cannot watch the buying power of the gas tax continue to decrease without reevaluating that continued investment. Thank you very much for your time. Don't know if there's any questions at all. Thank you. I would like to thank the South Carolina Highway Patrol while I'm here. You gentlemen save lives in our work zones every day, from DUIs to speeding. Thank you very much.
Next up is James Keel.
Good morning, or afternoon at this point. My name is James Kill, and I serve as the Executive Director for the Greenville Transit Authority here in Greenville. But my comments are more specific to my role as President of the Transit Association of South Carolina. So we're an advocacy organization for all of the public transit providers in the state. I want to first acknowledge Secretary Powell for his comments related to FTA with the oversight. It's created a number of issues for our transit providers, but Jennifer Necker has been very helpful, and we appreciate her and the work that she's done. I guess my first big ask is please do not overlook what public transit brings to the state, what it brings to South Carolina. SCDOT needs more help from you as it relates to OPT. And really what I mean by that is if you look at the size of OPT, they need more staff for the size of our agency, the size of their agency. It doesn't add up. And we probably wouldn't have had these compliance issues if they had more help. So that is my first ask, is please don't overlook that. Public transit can be wildly successful if it's managed and funded correctly. So that really is the purpose of my statement. Now, selfishly, here in Greenville, we've done yeoman's work on public transit. I would like to invite all of you to come look at the operations and maintenance facility that was opened in December of last year. It's a leader of what public transit can look like in South Carolina. And I also need to acknowledge the fact that SCDOT participated heavily in funding that. So if it's done right and managed correctly, we can have a lot of success. Secretary Powell played a huge role in that. I know there's been some scrutiny from many of my colleagues from SCDOT about SCDOT with public transit. But if compliance is done well, it can be a huge supporter. The other thing that I need to bring to the attention is, public transit and roads are very different. To the point about potholes, if we don't fill a pothole today, the road's still going to be there tomorrow. That isn't true for transit vehicles, and a lot of our small agencies have literally driven the wheels off of some of those vehicles. And a lot of that funding comes through DOT. And at the end of the day, there's not enough local money to match the federal dollars that are there, especially in our Tier 3 and Tier 4 counties. So it is not a one-size-fits-all approach to this. It has to be managed. It has to be curtailed. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you are in South Carolina. People need public transit at some level, whether it's to get to work or for your grandmother to get to her medical appointments or to get groceries delivered. There's a lot of value that can be provided as long as it's managed well and managed appropriately. So my big request, as you consider modernizing DOT, don't forget public transit. Don't forget that we can help with congestion. We can get cars off the road, and ultimately we can make the economy move better in South Carolina, because at the end of the day, we're a manufacturing state, and a lot of these big manufacturers use public transit as a tool to get workers to come, because at the end of the day, they might not have the money for a car, but if they can use public transit to do it, it gives people an opportunity to go to work and participate meaningfully in the state that we're trying to create. That's all for my comments. Thank you all.
Jana Myers. Good afternoon. Firstly, I'd like to say I mirror what Mr. Kill has said. But I also want to preference by saying my speech may come across as confrontational, but it will end on a positive note.
Excuse me, would you tell us your full name and who you're with?
Yes, that was my next sentence. My name is Jana Myers, and I serve as the Executive Director of Generations Unlimited, which is the designated 5311 provider in Barnwell County. I'm here today because the SCDOT's ongoing refusal to release our mass transit funds has put us in an impossible position. These delays are not the result of financial doing. They stem from policy revisions and compliance requests that we have been working diligently to meet for more than a year. Yet while the paperwork still lingers, the reality on the ground is that our community is being left without essential transportation. Generations Unlimited provides the only affordable, reliable way for many Barnwell County residents to reach medical care, such as chemotherapy treatments and dialysis treatments. Jobs, we're trying to help with the workforce and employee retention with our industries in our area. People that need to get to educational facilities, and then other daily necessities. We already face budget cuts and a shortage of drivers. On top of that, the SCDOT is holding back about $100,000 that is owed to us from previous years. This funding gap threatens payroll, operations, and the very existence of our service. Without intervention, we are forced to consider shutting our doors and suspending services, not because of mismanagement of funds, but because of the compliance. And let me be clear, when I say, SCDOT withholds our funds, it's not a punishment on Generations Unlimited. It's a punishment on the chemotherapy patients and dialysis patients and seniors who cannot reach their appointments and daily necessity needs such as grocery shopping. And it's also the punishment to the worker who cannot get to their job, as some have lost their jobs because of the lack of operational costs to get them to and from where they need to be. These people are the ones who pay the price for the funding delay. Small city and rural transit systems like ours already operate on razor-thin budgets. We cannot continue to weather months of funding freezes while waiting on policy revisions. These funds should be made available. To withhold them this long, and from what I've been told by the SCDOT, that once the policy revisions are done and they do consider us compliant, there's a possibility that we will be monitored for another 12 months and still not reimbursed. This is not only reckless, it just undermines the very purpose of the 5311 program. So I'm asking this committee, and I'm asking the secretary directly, to release our funds immediately so we can continue serving the residents of Barnwell County. We just simply cannot afford any more delays. In Barnwell County, transportation is not a luxury, it's a lifeline. But I did want to mention that on my way in, I did get some encouraging news from the SCDOT, and am hopeful that we move forward with an amazing working relationship. And if the funding is not released in a timely manner, I will reach back out to this committee. Thank you.
Next is Jessica Palmer.
Hello, good afternoon. Madam Chairs Crawford and Erickson and members of the committee. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jessica Palmer, and I serve as the Executive Director of the South Carolina Aggregates Association. I represent an industry that forms the literal foundation of every road, bridge, airport, and infrastructure project of our state. Aggregates, stone, sand, and gravel are not just commodities. They are the essential building blocks of progress. Without them, no infrastructure initiative, no matter how well funded or well intentioned, can move forward. Simply put, without us, progress does not happen. Our member companies represent 60 quarries and sand mining operations in 26 counties across the states. I have a couple of our members here with me today. They invest hundreds of millions of dollars into South Carolina's economy, building plants, expanding operations, and employing thousands of South Carolinians across every region of the state. And in 2024, our member companies shipped over 34 million tons of aggregates into our state's projects. But our ability to serve this state and keep pace with its growing infrastructure needs depends heavily on a clear, efficient, and collaborative relationship with the South Carolina Department of Transportation. We fully support the mission of SCDOT and commend the leadership of Secretary Justin Powell. Under his direction, we have seen meaningful progress and stronger alignment on long-term transportation goals. However, as demand for construction materials continues to rise, we need a deeper partnership, one built on a mutual understanding of the unique challenges our industry faces. A strong two-way business relationship with SCDOT will help ensure our plants operate efficiently, remain balanced, and are able to deliver high-quality materials on time and at scale. This collaboration is critical to the success of the state's infrastructure agenda. In their presentation on August 20th, the SCDOT spoke about how they need to modernize their toolbox in order to fulfill everything that they want to do with the project of the state to move forward. This is exactly what we are hoping to do with them and what we have already asked to do with them. From being able to balance our plants by using all of the products that are at our disposal, to bringing ideas and products that are already being implemented successfully in other states, is something that we as a partner of the DOT are excited to continue doing with them. Our message is simple. Investing in infrastructure means investing in the industries that make it possible. We stand ready to support South Carolina's future, and we ask that SCDOT continue to work with us to ensure that we can do so effectively. Thank you.
Next is Jeff Hildebrand.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jeff Hildebrand. I'm the president and CEO of CoTransco. We're the program managers for the Greenville Legislative Delegation Transportation Committee. Nice long word. But thanks to folks like David and Mark, Bruce, and the guys, you've put together a great citizen committee. We take those precious dollars that we get, through the gas tax. We get about $10 million a year. We turn that into about $20 million a year through our partnerships with the county and the city, school districts, redevelopment authority, waterworks, sewer authority, and the like. So, the task that the DOT has is ominous. We really appreciate our partnerships. We're called the DOT Old Folks Home because when your guys retire, we hire them and stuff. But an understanding that you want to turn over some of these farm to market roads, totally get it, and I totally agree. The federal funding is not there to help with those. So there's a couple of recommendations that, looking at it from the C fund standpoint, what we would consider some good ideas. Which, right now we get 3.99 cents per gallon out of the gas tax. So if you're going to transfer roads over back, locally, that number would most likely need to be adjusted. So it's an ongoing amount of money because the roads are not going to need to be fixed just once. Second thing is there's a 25% requirement where C funds, you have to be put back on the state system. So, if you're turning those farm to market roads back locally, then that number should be adjusted, eliminated, depending on, what level you decide to do. The third thing is, Greenville is a donor county. So of course, we collect more than the money that comes back. And there's a cap on that amount of money every year that gets redistributed back out. So removing that cap would help. I mean, I think the cap, the money on top of the cap is going to the state, the DOT now. And the one thing that will probably surprise most folks is that only gasoline we get money on. There's nothing coming from electric vehicles, from natural gas, from diesel, hydrogen, any other sources. And so if you look at the damage that's done, even the asphalt trucks that bring the asphalt to the road that we're paving, some of the studies put the damage from an 18-wheeler that's fully loaded from 6,000 to 10,000 times the damage that a standard motor vehicle, a car, would do. So, if you've got 4 diesel transfer trucks on a road, you you're looking at 35,000 cars. It's not my words, it's a couple of studies. So anyway, I think that some of those things that you need to be looked at, and certainly I understand, and, bringing those roads back to us would be, it's understandable, but we just need the help like everybody else does. I mean, I think we do a really good job with spreading those monies as far as we possibly can. So that's it. Thank you.
Daniel Gamble.
Good evening, good early afternoon, members of the AdHoc committee. My name is Daniel Gamble, and I live here in Greenville County, right in the Donaldson area in District 25 in Wendell Jones's district. He's my representative, and I want to come here today that the roads and infrastructure and traffic issues in Greenville County, especially on Donaldson Road, which is I live off of, that stretches both ends of Augusta Road, known as Highway 25. That road has bumps. It has not been paved in quite some times. All they did in the past year that it built it down. We have trucks, school buses, 18-wheelers, and other vehicles travel the road and causing, if you hit a bump, it causing the wear and tear on vehicles. And that rides through Donaldson Road. This has going an ongoing issue. Elsewhere in Greenville County, Woodruff Road is congested, dealing with traffic congestion is an everyday thing. When you work, live, and play in Greenville County, everybody hates Woodruff Road, and particularly Greenville is growing tremendously, and I-85 is truck traffic back and forth. Every day when I go to work, like to and from Anderson, I deal with trucks riding through 85, and especially at night. I know Greenville County is growing 24/7. And traffic is worse at rush hours, but morning, lunchtime, and afternoon, like late afternoon. That's all I have. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you, Daniel, that we have some local folks, some DOT regional people here today. So as soon as we're done, they're down here in the front row or the first few rows. We're going to connect you with somebody so that your concerns can be heard, and we'll see how we can address those. Okay? Perfect. Thank you for being here. Next is Michael Coleman.
Good afternoon, Madam Co-Chairs, and to the rest of the committee. I also want to begin by thanking Secretary Powell and the entire Department of Transportation for your work in maintaining our state's transportation system. My name is Michael Coleman, and I serve as the energy advocate for Upstate Forever, a land trust and conservation organization that works to protect the critical lands, waters, and the unique characteristics of the 10-county upstate region. I want to begin my comments by addressing how SCDOT projects can impact private property through flooding and erosion. We unfortunately have seen this firsthand on one of our conservation easements in Spartanburg County. What happened was when a road was raised near the property in 2021, it left the floodplain dysfunctional, resulting in significant erosion and long-term damage to that property. We also are aware of a similar instance here in Greenville County, dating back to the 1993 Highway 276 project, when the SCDOT redirected drainage into a natural outfall ditch and offered to pipe it underground for landowners. As you can imagine, many of those landowners accepted that offer without realizing that they were assuming ownership and maintenance responsibilities. As of now, no deed or right-of-way has been found that clarifies that the pipes are not SCDOT's responsibility. If the South Carolina Department of Transportation wants to continue this practice of piping outfall ditches for landowners. It must clearly document that maintenance is the landowner's responsibility while also coordinating with agencies like the South Carolina Office of Resilience, the Department of Natural Resources, as well as the Department of Environmental Services to provide support if issues do arise. This closely aligns with Momentum 2050's objective to identify assets that are vulnerable to flooding and inundation and develop adaptation strategies. We also strongly urge this committee to prioritize increasing funding for mass transit across South Carolina while integrating multimodal design into roadway improvements. Strategic investments in buses, rail, and regional transit partnerships can reduce congestion and connect residents with jobs, healthcare, and education. One high-level opportunity would be to study the cost and benefits of building upon the planned high-speed rail between Atlanta and Charlotte. This also directly supports Momentum 2050's goal of addressing urban congestion and rural mobility while improving access to opportunities and strengthening workforce development. While we recognize that we live in a car-centered economy, incorporating protected bike lanes, buffered sidewalks, and safer crossings benefits communities by improving walkability, quality of life, and alleviating congestion on our roads. So as I conclude, modernizing our state's transportation system is about more than moving cars from point A to point B. It's about ensuring that South Carolina's growth is balanced and sustainable. By protecting private property, investing in mass transit and multimodal options, and mitigating flooding impacts, we can position our state to grow responsibly while strengthening the communities, landscapes, and the economy that makes South Carolina unique. Thank you guys so much.
Next is Aaron Predmore.
Good morning, Madam Chairs, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Erin Predmore, the Executive Director of Greenville Connects, a local transit and mobility advocacy organization here in Greenville County. I'm also a mother of 2 teenage boys, which may seem off topic, but for any of you who have teenage boys, they grow very quickly. They eat a ton, and I'm always trying to keep up with making sure they look okay and making sure that they're not going to be cranky because they're hungry, right? So in many ways, our transit system is like being a mother of 2 teenage boys. Here in South Carolina, we've grown so quickly, we're still trying to put them in their shorts from last summer or their shoes from 2 years ago. And just in that investment that's needed for our community and our state to do well is definitely needed now. For example, the State Mass Transit Fund was begun in the late 80s. It was funded by a small portion of the gas tax and was to provide the required local match for federal investment. At that time, it was revolutionary and very future focused. It was leading the entire country. Also in that time, in 1987, South Carolina invested that $6 million from the State Mass Transit Fund to support 7 transit systems serving 24 counties. Now, 38 years later, the State Mass Transit Fund is the same amount, $6 million. That $6 million must now be stretched across 34 systems, serving all 46 counties. Remember that metaphor of my teenage boys trying to fit into last year's clothes? What once provided about $850,000 per system now provides only $176,000 per system. When you factor in inflation, that $6 million from 1987 is now worth just $2.2 million today. In short, we're cutting thinner and thinner slices from a pie that's actually getting smaller. The fund has not modernized. Meanwhile, while that's going on, the demand for public transit has only grown. 70% of rides taken in South Carolina help people get to work. Over 400,000 South Carolinians are under or unemployed, and up to half of them report that the lack of reliable transportation is their barrier to work. Expanding transit service would mean 2 to 3 million additional rides annually, connecting workers to jobs, seniors to healthcare, and students to education. So the solution's clear. 1, I need to go to the grocery store and I need to go to the store to just get new shoes. But we as a society and as the community here in South Carolina need to increase annual transit funding to $80 million. That's the amount it should be after 38 years of inflation and the addition of 27 more transit providers. This investment would not only restore our original commitment to transit, it would unlock its estimated 200 to 300 million in federal matching funds over the next decade. It would those resources that are critical to maintaining fleets and expanding rural service. Right now, today, as we sit here, transit agencies across the state have unused federal funds that lack the required local match, which means there's money for buses that can't be upgraded, money to repair leaking roofs on maintenance buildings that will still leak tomorrow because the local match isn't there, and money to support new routes and service that won't happen because the state mass transit fund hasn't kept up. Currently, South Carolina is falling behind its neighbors. We spend just $1.08 per person on transit. Georgia spends double that. North Carolina invests 7 times as much. Tennessee and Florida invest nearly 9 and 14 times more, respectively. If we expect to stay competitive economically and socially, we cannot afford to trail so far behind. It's not just a transportation issue, it's a workforce issue, an economic development issue, and a quality of life issue. More reliable transit means stronger local economies, healthier communities, and a greater opportunity for every South Carolinian. As you seek ways to modernize SCDOT, I urge you to consider all mobility needs of South Carolina and invest accordingly. By funding public transit at $80 million annually, we can ensure that South Carolina's people, businesses, and economy are not left waiting at the curb. Thank you so much.
Next is Harris Darver.
Good morning, Madam Co-Chairs and members of the committee. My name is Harris Darver. I'm a certified public accountant with nearly 20 years in public practice, and for the last decade, I've had the privilege of providing financial consulting and contracted accounting services to rural public transportation providers across several South Carolina counties. I've seen firsthand how vital transit is to our communities. These systems, as said before, connect seniors to medical appointments, workers to jobs, and resident populations to basic necessities. But behind the scenes, the financial strains to sustain these services is becoming unsustainable. Much of modernization conversation is focused on roads and highways. It's important, but it's not the full picture. Modernizing SCDOT must also mean modernizing how we move people, not just cars and freight. Rural South Carolinians need safe, reliable public transit every bit as much as urban commuters need wider interstates. Federal Section 5311 funding requires a local match, 20% for administration costs, 50% for operations, and 15 to 20% for capital expenditures. On paper, sounds manageable. In reality, it creates a crushing weight for small nonprofits and local governments already stretched thin. Replacing a single transit van now costs well over $100,000. That means local providers must come up with $20,000 per vehicle, money they simply do not have. It's not just vehicles. Rising fuel, insurance, maintenance costs are stretching every available dollar. Small nonprofit operators, many of whom also provide senior services or meal programs, are being forced to choose between keeping a route open or cutting back on other essential services. Local governments in rural counties are no better positioned to absorb these costs or help support the local transit providers. If we're serious about modernization and addressing the growth, then state mass transit funds must be increased to fully match every federal dollar available. This is a targeted investment with immediate impact. With sufficient state match dollars, every federal dollar is put to work here at home with faster fleet replenishment, safer vehicles on our roads, and better access for workers to reach the jobs that fuel our economy. It means small communities keep pace with growth and ensures SCDOT's modernization efforts extend beyond highways to the complete transportation system South Carolina deserves. By increasing state mass transit funds, this committee can make sure every dollar is leveraged, every project is accelerated, and every community, rural and urban alike, shares in the benefits of a modernized transportation system. Thank you for your time, and I welcome the opportunity for further dialogue as you continue your work.
Last today, but not least, is Matthew Hudson Fledge.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Hudson Flaggy. I'm with the Upstate Greenways and Trails Alliance, or UGATA. We're a nonprofit who works to expand the trails network throughout upstate South Carolina. In the last 4 years, we built more than 35 miles of trails, and we currently have 12 miles of paved expansions to the Swamp Rabbit Trail network, either under construction or in design. That includes a few miles down in Fountain Inn and Simpsonville and Representative Vaughn's district, and we appreciate your support with that. Later today, we'll send an email with several concrete policy recommendations. Although with 8 guys from King Asphalt back there, I'm going to rephrase that and say several asphalt policy recommendations. But for my comments today, I would just like to leave the committee members with 2 sort of general themes. Number one is that bike and pedestrian infrastructure is transportation infrastructure. The Swamp Rabbit Trail in Greenville County gets more than 2 million uses a year, and a substantial portion of those are people getting to and from work, to and from school, to and from shopping. That's cars off of the road. That's people also enjoying a nice quality of life and a healthy lifestyle that we all come to enjoy and that people move to South Carolina to enjoy. So I just ask that as you review these different policy considerations and balance things, please don't think of, well, we've got so much public right of way and let's just cram in as many lanes as we can. And if there's 2 feet left for a bike walk, that's great. That's unfortunately how things have been considered historically in our state and in a lot of places. And, for anyone who thinks that's working well, I challenge you to just go out Wade Hampton to my city of Greer and just, get that experience. It's clearly not an ideal scenario. So just please consider bike and pedestrian infrastructure as that critical transportation infrastructure, like everything else. Number 2, my challenge to you as committee members would be, again, as you're weighing all these different, modernization approaches, would be to, whenever you can, please try to take the reins off of the people who are actually doing the work. And what I mean by that is our organization's interaction with SCDOT. We work closely with our district administrator, Brandon Wilson, engineer Ben Olson. These are smart guys. These are guys who get the importance of transportation and bike and pedestrian transportation, and they want to help. And sometimes we can find creative ways to work together to come up with solutions. Many times, though, they're so hamstrung by different regulations and other considerations that it can be very difficult, A, to do things in a timely manner, or B, to do things at all, things that we think would be common sense ways to make our streets safer for pedestrians and bicyclists. So again, I would just encourage you as a committee, just a mentality of how can we give more autonomy to the people who are working in our communities and really understand the creative ways to make these things happen. So I thank you all for your attention to this very big and gargantuan task of modernizing our transportation system, and I appreciate your consideration of bike and pedestrian infrastructure in that challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that did not sign up yet but would like to speak? Please step forward. You'll state your name and the organization or entity that you are with. And we'll let you get started. 5 minutes. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Becky Moon. Good morning. I am the executive director for the McCormick County Senior Center and McCormick Area Transit. And for the last 21 years, I've been able to enjoy the wonderful feelings that you get from meeting people's needs that are above and beyond your own. So my reason for being here today is just about the fairness and the funding formula that is currently available for our allocations. In McCormick, our agency actually provides public transportation services for McCormick County, Greenwood County, and formerly Abbeville County. Abbeville was no longer able to continue to contract for public transportation services because they were not able to meet the local match required for that service. So now we have an unserved situation with people who continuously call seeking rides that we're not able to meet their needs. In McCormick alone, we approximately travel 215,000 revenue passenger miles annually. Yet, when I compare our allocation that we're receiving for public transportation to a peer system in our network, it's despairingly striking. We operate 36% fewer miles, but we receive 53% fewer funding. This mismatch does not mean that we're not receiving proportionately less. We're just being funded at a rate that's fundamentally inadequate. For a system like ours, every dollar is magnified. Funding shortfalls, it translates directly into fewer trips for workers, seniors, families, and people who just rely on our transportation services every day. The state has an opportunity to correct the imbalance and strengthen the rural transit systems through two key actions. Revisiting the funding formula so that the allocations are a little bit more closely aligned with the actual services that are provided, and increasing the overall pool of state mass transit dollars so that the federal funding can be maximized without shifting unsustainable burdens onto the counties that just simply cannot afford to absorb those funds. Rural counties like mine in McCormick, we do not have industry. We do not have the tax base like our urban neighbors. Because of that, we're not able to sometimes meet those match requirements for public transportation. Without a stronger state participation, we fall further behind despite the fact that our presence is essential to South Carolina's statewide economy and the health care of our seniors that are aging in place. I also want to briefly highlight vehicle procurement. While South Carolina does maintain a statewide contract and options are limited for our vehicles, costs still remain high. This restricts our availability to refresh our fleets, especially within a timely manner. My most newest vehicle is a 2019 model. We utilize vehicles that were structured or built in 2012, 14, 17, and I was able to purchase one in 2019. Local match issues. This is alarming. It's also, it puts an impact on public safety, and it also, it affects our reliability to being able to be available to the community. Expanding procurement options, being able to offer smaller but more efficient vehicles to meet the challenging situations of rural life and road conditions. Securing better contract pricing, stretching the scarce dollars, they will go farther. But this is only meaningful if the underlying funding formula and the pool of state dollars are strengthened first. So in closing, I want to urge the committee to please prioritize three things: a fairer, more balanced funding formula, an increase in the state mass transit funding, and improvement to procurement that will lower the cost replacing aging fleets like ours, and it will also improve public safety. Together, these changes will not only correct the inequities, but ensure that rural South Carolina has access to a safe, low-cost, reliable transportation system necessary to support the residents of rural community like McCormick. Thank you.
Any other members of the public that are here that would wish to be heard? Okay, with that, we will close our public input portion of this meeting. As a reminder to our members, if you have questions or want to follow up with someone that gave public input, please get with Emma or Mills. We will get you some contact information Also, we have regional DOT staff here that can help with any local issues or items. We can help address that afterwards. Also, as a reminder, anyone who did not speak or would wish to be heard or submit written testimony, please do that to scHouseEPW@schouse.gov. That's scHouseEPW@schouse.gov. Please submit that written testimony so that we can share it with our members. And with that, before I hand it over to Chair Lady Erickson, I want to say thank you again to Greenville Tech. Thank you for being here today, for all of our members and for members of the public that were here. I look forward to welcoming all of you to the Myrtle Beach area, and that will be our next meeting Tuesday, September 23rd. Look forward to having you in my neck of the woods in Myrtle Beach. And we will, of course, release that agenda at a later date as we get closer to that, and also some other upcoming meetings. Thank you so much. Chair Lady Erickson.
Well, looks like Representative Crawford has covered just about everything. You know, the next place that you've got to be for this committee is Myrtle Beach. We'll come visit her in her stomping grounds. I'd like to thank Greenville Tech, but also our Department of Public Safety, DOT, all the business folks who are represented in the room today. Thank you for doing business in South Carolina. Thank you for contributing to all of your communities the way you do. Thank you to our advocacy groups and our volunteers and the folks who spoke out. I'm a big trail fan. I'm gonna tell you, I've got the Spanish Moss Trail in my backyard. So I really appreciate how many different areas were covered in today's hearing, and appreciate the Greenville turnout. Great job, everybody. Thank you so much for giving us good input. Members, again, don't forget to hand in your travel vouchers, and thank you for being with us today, and we will see you in Myrtle Beach. God bless and be safe.